everybody, and welcome to the first installment in a new series I'm going to have here on my channel called Can Revv Do? Followed by 3 dots, because every episode is going to change slightly. You've probably already guessed that this episode is going to be trying to get in the ballpark of an Eric Johnson-ish style lead tone. Now, what is this series all about? Well, I have my amazing Revv Generator 100R amp over here, and I've done some content with it before, but you know, this is just too fine an amp to not use for more content. And I'm sure some folks out there that are Revv users and even non-Revv users wondering what this amp is capable of will enjoy seeing it used to dial in some, let's say, classic tones, or I shouldn't say dial in, but get closer in the ballpark of what some classic tones are. Maybe tones that you wouldn't have thought it possible for the Revv Generator amp to do. So the way I'm going to set this up is I'm going to be going direct into my Revv Generator, coming out of the direct recording outputs on the back of it, and feeding into the 2Notes Torpedo Remote. I'm going to be picking a speaker cabinet from the 2Notes library. These are not all free. That's one caveat I have to let you know. I purchased this one myself. I don't have any relationship with 2Notes. I do have a relationship with Revv. I'm an artist on their roster, very proud to be on there with some other amazing musicians. But I don't have any affiliation with 2Notes, so I'm purchasing all of the dynamic impulse responses that I'm using, and I'll show you the one I chose today. I'll put a link to it in the description below if you wanted to go grab it for yourself if you like the sound of this. And I just chose it based off of what my ear was telling me and what worked after I tried a few different ones out. So you heard a little snippet of the tone I got. Now, again, a little disclaimer here is I'm not saying I've recreated Eric's tone. Number one, I don't have Eric's hands or Eric's guitar or Eric's brain, which is going to be the biggest part of his tone, really, in the way he plays and attacks those strings and his immense talent on the guitar. And obviously, he didn't use anything like a Revv Generator 100R amp when he recorded Cliffs of Dover, which is the example I used in the intro. And I'm going to give you the full solo later in this video so you can hear how this tone we're going to create today worked in the mix, as you heard a snippet of. So without further ado, let's head over to our Torpedo Remote software and take a look and see exactly what I did to get the tone you just heard in the intro and you're going to hear a little later on. So here we have the dynamic IR virtual cabinet called the Brit 60A. It's a capture made by 2Notes from a Marshall-inspired 1960A guitar cabinet. The capture was made on a 412 closed-back cabinet loaded with Celestion 12-inch G12T75 speakers. And I know some people are going to say, oh, that's not the speakers that Eric used. I wasn't trying to find the speakers Eric used. I don't even know what speakers Eric used on this. I was simply going through, trying some out, and seeing which one worked best to my ear. And I settled on this combined with the tweaks I made within Torpedo Remote, moving the microphone around, the microphone choice, and the settings on the amplifier. So if you guys are interested in this, here is the URL to that, and I'll put that in the link below if you are interested in grabbing this for yourself. Now, what about the settings on the amp? Let's take a look and see how the Revv Generator 100R is set, what channel I'm using, and where all the knobs are turned to. So here we are over on the Revv Generator 100R. We can see that I'm on channel 3 with the lowest aggression settings. None of my bright, cut, or fat controls are engaged. I have the bass fairly high up there. I would say like 9 out of a 10 scale. Mids are right in the middle, and treble is turned way down to somewhere around 1, I'll say. So I have the level turned up just to get a healthy volume coming out of that channel for my recording interface. You'll notice that I have the master set to about 10 o'clock, and I have my presence and depth cranked up to 10. So that's the settings that you would want to set your amp to, your 100R, if you wanted to mimic this tone with this dynamic IR from 2Notes that I already showed you. So here we are over at the Torpedo Remote software, and I've created this little preset called Eric Johnson. You'll notice I have this cathedral room where the amp cabinet is sitting. I've only used one microphone. I have the gate turned off. I mean, you can turn that on if it's something that you need. I'm using the Ribbon 160 mic. Anybody who watches my channel and any of my tone videos for the Line 6 Helix or Amplitube will know that when I create tones, a lot of times, if it's appropriate, I always gravitate towards using Ribbon mics. And the Ribbon 160 in this case worked really, really nicely, and I was very happy with the way it sounded. You will notice, though, that I have it slightly off axis and pulled back. So if you want to mimic these settings or recreate these settings, you'll notice the off axis setting is at 32%. and the distance setting is at 27%. And that's it as far as the mic goes. I have the volume at 0 here. The left and right output is at 0 as well. I did turn this twin tracker on, which kind of is a doubling effect with the tightness on 0 and the balance on 0. All it did is I just felt it kind of beefed up the tone a little bit. I guess just doubling it up and making it a little bit tighter sounding, I guess, or fatter sounding. I don't know what it did to it. I just liked it when it was turned on. I'll give you an example of what this sounds like with it on and off. Another really important aspect to this tone that you're hearing is the reverb. And I'm using the built-in reverb for no other reason than I want you to be able to get the same tone as I have. If I was going to use this tone in the studio or live, I would probably get an outboard reverb with a little bit more tweakability and a few more options. I wasn't completely blown away by this, but it did the job. And since it's built in here, I'm just going to use that. So you'll notice I have a dry wet setting set to 30%. I have it set to the ambience mode. It's the cathedral room, as we can see here. The size is at 80%, echo is at 27%, and color is at 72%. Like I said, I'm not 100% happy with this, but it did the job for all kind of working internally within Torpedo Remote. I also turned the enhancer on, set that to 50% dry wet, body on 0, thickness on 21%, and brilliance on 13%. I just kind of liked what those settings did. So without further ado, let's do this. Let's turn the twin tracker, reverb, and enhancer off, and we'll just see what this sounds like with my Vigier Expert Strat style guitar. So you can tell it's kind of a dark tone, you know, kind of what Eric would be using is that kind of dark kind of a tone, but there is a nice sizzle to it still when you listen to Eric's tone. Obviously, we're missing delay reverb because Eric's tone is also very wet. But let's now take this and turn the enhancer on and see what those settings do, like I mentioned, with the thickness on 21 and the brilliance on 13. So here it is before. Now we're going to turn the twin tracker on just to let you hear what I was telling you about. I just kind of like what it did to the tone. Here it is before. So this is obviously in stereo, and you can hear how it kind of just seems to add just a tiny bit of delay and split them out left and right. Kind of, you know, fattened it up a bit, obviously. You may want to just turn that off if you don't like it. And it's not going to destroy the preset or anything. Now let's turn on the reverb with the settings I had actually mentioned to you before. So some Eric-y kind of licks there from his Cliffs of Dover intro. I'm kind of liking that, but obviously it's missing the delay. So one thing I did in the mix that you heard in the intro and that I'm about to play you again is I did add some outboard delay. I used Line 6 Helix Native, and I just slapped in a little transistor tape delay, one of my favorites in there. I did a note sync of a quarter note, so I synced it to the song. Feedback of 39%, wow of flutter at 3.6, scale at 100, spread at 2.9, mix at 42%. And when I turned that on, this is what we got. So again, I'm not saying that this sounds exactly like Eric, but I was actually pretty pleasantly surprised with how I could get in that ballpark. And if you had to play anything by Eric Johnson, I think this tone would work really nicely for you. So these are the settings I used for this with this particular Brit 60A dynamic IR from the fine folks over at 2 Notes. And you can go grab that and use it with your Revv generator amp with the settings I showed you, and hopefully you can get it sounding close to what I have. All right, so how does this sound in the mix? Well, let's take a listen. I did a little recording with a backing track I found online of the guitar solo from the original Cliffs of Dover off Avaya Musicom. Changed a couple little things in the solo, but just to give you an idea of how this tone worked in the mix. All right, so what do you guys think? I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you got all those settings, and you can try it out on your own amp. Go give the folks over at 2 Notes a look at the link below for that particular dynamic impulse response. I was really liking what it did to the tone and with those settings in conjunction with the settings on my Revv generator. Thank you guys so much. Again, please keep your eye out for more videos in this series. I'm going to look for some more tones that I can possibly get in the ballpark of. I don't want to ever say recreate because that's impossible. You know, you're never going to get exactly, but as long as we can get something that works nicely and that's close, I think some folks will be happy using these settings. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please like the video, share it with anybody who you think would get some use out of watching it. Also, please subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back really soon with some more. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Ciao for now.